Hello, and thank you for watching. My name is Bradford Roberts, Principal Broker, Founder, and Owner of TR Realty in the Las Vegas area. After watching this video, please be sure to like it as well as subscribe to our YouTube channel. Download the pertinent handouts for this video by clicking the link in the comments below. Now let's get started. This video is entitled Class 4 Seller Excellence, and this segment is entitled Closing Escrow. You have 2 business days to change the status in MLS from AER, Active Exclusive Right, to Under Contract Show or Under Contract No Show. Don't screw around here. 2 business days, get it done as soon as possible. And also, you want to help your fellow realtor by keeping the status current. So let's go through the most common progression. When we put a listing into MLS, it starts in AER status. Again, that is Active Exclusive Right. From there, it typically moves to UCS, Under Contract Show. From there, it typically moves to UCNS, Under Contract No Show. And from there, it typically moves to S, which stands for Sold. There are the side status such as WC, T, but generally that is the progression. AER, UCS, UCNS, S, Sold. So we have to keep the closing date updated in MLS as well. When you put a property into UCS or UCNS status, you have to indicate in MLS the estimated closing date. If that closing date comes and goes, the property is not yet in S status, you're actually in violation. So we have to keep that closing date updated in the MLS system or we are in violation. As the listing agent, there can be a tendency to pass off responsibility for certain tasks in a transaction to the buyer's agent. You might think, well, that's the buyer's agent's responsibility. In my opinion, it doesn't matter what the listing agent's responsibility is or the buyer's agent's responsibility is. All responsibilities are responsibilities of all. In other words, if you want to get paid, if you want to close your transaction, you can't put everything on the shoulders of another person. You can't trust that other person that they know what they're doing, and even if they know what they're doing, they're going to do the right thing. So it's important for you as the listing agent to follow through on things like the earnest money deposit, as an example, the mortgage application, making sure the buyer is able to procure insurance on the property, things like inspections, the appraisal, the resale package, etc. So again, a lot of these are typically thought of as buyer obligations, buyer agent obligations, but if you want the transaction to close, you need to follow up as well. Here's another thing that has come around in the last couple of years, something that we never thought about before, and that is checking the receipt for EMD that the title company provides to actually ensure the amount is what's in the contract. I know that sounds bizarre, but in the last couple of years or so, I've seen some situations where buyers open escrow with an EMD in a different amount than what appears on the contract. I guess they're hoping that the title company is not going to catch it or say anything. The listing agent is not going to open the receipt or care about that, but that's actually a big deal. Because if we've got a contract that calls for, let's say, $5,000 EMD, and the buyer only deposits $1,000 EMD, the buyer's in default right from the beginning. And if you're on the listing side, if you're not careful about this, this can put your seller in a bad situation. He thinks he's being protected by $5,000 when in fact there's only $1,000 in escrow. So be careful of that as well. We cannot disclose offer price or contract price until the transaction is closed. And the actual sale price can only be disclosed after closing, okay? So you've got a property under contract, Maybe you're out at the property, one of the neighbors walks up and asks you, hey, what did you end up selling that property for? We can't disclose it until actual closing. And then after closing, it does become public record, so there's no problem disclosing it at that point. I want to mention FIRPTA. FIRPTA is something that appears in our listing agreement, as you might remember. It's also something that appears in our purchase and sale agreement. And FIRPTA stands for Foreign Investment in Real Property Tax Act. It is our federal government trying to make sure that somebody doesn't sell a property, make profit, and leave the United States without paying tax on that profit. So FIRPTA requires that 15% of the seller's proceeds are retained in the title company until such time as the seller can prove that he paid his taxes. Now, if a year goes by, the title company is holding the FIRPTA money, and the seller has not been able to prove to the title company that he paid taxes, at the end of that year, that 15% is going to be released to the federal government. It's going to be released to the IRS. However, during that year, if the seller is able to prove he paid his taxes, then that 15% that has been withheld is going to go to the seller. So foreign sellers are subject to FIRPTA. What the heck is a foreign seller? We don't know. You don't know. I don't know. We're not qualified to make that determination. And honestly, I've had sellers call 2 different title companies and get 2 different answers whether they are subject to FIRPTA or not. It can be quite complicated, so we stay out of it. If your seller is curious, if he's subject to the FIRPTA withholding, he needs to contact the title company directly, not through us. And as a listing agent, part of closing escrow is also getting the property ready for closing. So things like ensuring that there is a proper walkthrough, as well as the property walkthrough verification form that is used by the buyer. Making sure that the utilities are scheduled for disconnect. Because here in Nevada, some utilities cannot be scheduled for connection until they're actually scheduled for disconnection. So that we have to make sure that our sellers are taking care of that. We also have to make sure, as the listing agent, that our sellers are preparing keys and any other points of access, such as a garage door opener, a gate clicker, a security card, maybe things like a mailbox key, a key for the pool. All of those things have to be prepared, and the listing agent babysits those items until the listing agent can independently verify that the deed has recorded. And it is only once we have verified that the deed has recorded that we can actually go ahead and release keys. And if you're smart in this incredibly litigious society that we live in, when you release keys to the incoming owner, the buyer of the property, you will actually get that person to sign some sort of a receipt that has a date and time as well. Because if you were to release the keys early and something happened on the property, there's insurance issues, there's all kinds of legal issues that could ensue. And what if the property ended up not recording at all? And now the buyer has access. That would be a really bad thing. Part of your responsibility as a listing agent is also making sure the seller is in the process of getting out of the house. If you show up for the walkthrough one day before close of escrow and you don't see any boxes piled up in the corner, danger, Will Robinson, we've got a problem here. And in short sales, it can be very, very difficult to get the sellers out of the property as well. It's interesting that the very person who hired you to do a short sale is the person who is most able and likely to prevent you from closing on that short sale. But more on that in my Class 6 short sale class. So my point here is that the seller should be preparing to move or completely moved as soon as possible. And what I like to see on my listings is after the due diligence period has expired, I like to see now that the seller is taking motions to get out of the property. And that makes me want to discuss a couple of situations that are dangerous for the parties, dangerous for us as real estate licensees, and therefore, in my opinion, should be avoided as much as possible. And those two scenarios are known as pre-possession and post-possession. Pre, of course, meaning before. Pre-possession is a situation where we allow a buyer to have access to a property before he actually legally owns it. Post-possession, post meaning after, of course, is a situation where we allow a seller to stay after close of escrow. Now, I said that these situations should be avoided, and they should. There are times that they can't be avoided. There are times that buyers and sellers will sometimes communicate directly, and one party will allow the other party to move in early or stay late, as the case may be. And I want to be very clear. Possessions equal possession. You follow me there? Possessions equal possession, meaning sometimes buyers will say, well, I just want to put some boxes in the garage. Or the seller will say, I'm out of the property, but I still have my patio furniture that I'm going to pick up next week. Possessions equal possession. So having stuff on the property means that somebody has possession. It's not necessarily whether the people are actually residing or sleeping on the property. Possessions equal possession. I'd like to bring your attention to our final two handouts of the segment and of the entire Class 4 video series. Go ahead and get both of them in front of you at the same time. One is the addendum to the RPA pre-possession, and the other is addendum to the RPA post-possession. Please get those in front of you right now. These two forms are probably the worst forms I have ever seen come out of our association. They are a disaster. Now, I understand the complexity of the situation. When we allow a buyer to move in early or we allow a seller to stay late, there's issues of things like security deposit, right? Are we keeping a security deposit or taking a security deposit? What if we allow a buyer to move in early and the property doesn't close at all? And now the buyer's got nowhere to go. He's a tenant. He has rights. We would have to evict him. And the same is true for a seller. What if the buyer allows the seller to stay one more day in the property after close of escrow? And after escrow closes, the seller says, you know what? I realize why I bought this house in the first place. I don't want to go now. I'm going to stay here for a while. I'm going to enjoy the pool. I'm going to enjoy the sunset. I'm not going anywhere. What the heck does the buyer do? The buyer has to evict, has to go through the eviction process. It's complicated, it's tedious, it's frustrating, and it can be expensive for the parties. So these two forms, the pre-possession and the post-possession, were prepared by our association. They are basically acting as a mini lease. And I'm not going to spend time on these forms because I hate them and I wish you would never ever use them. But they do call for addressing things like the condition of the property. Is there a charge, which is typically daily in a pre-possession or post-possession situation? Is there a security deposit? Who's taking care of utilities? What about insurance, etc.? So I just want to bring to your attention that we do have these forms available to us in Transaction Desk. Try never, never to use these. What is the solution then? Because as real estate agents, if our parties, our buyer and seller, want to do something foolish like pre or post possession, all we can do is try to protect them and protect ourselves. Pre-possession and post-possession are legal. So if they want to do it, they can do it. My suggestion is, as a real estate agent, how you can best protect your clients and best protect yourselves is to do a lease, a real lease, even if it's for a day or a week. I know it's long, I know it's time consuming, but not as time consuming as being called to a courtroom. And the last couple of thoughts I'd like to leave you with in this lengthy but amazing Class 4 that we have accomplished here in this video series. Visit your listings, folks. even when they're under contract. You should visit every listing once a week, even if it's 5 minutes, and especially if it's vacant. Go there, pick up the menus that have been left on the front steps, make sure the mail isn't piling up, make sure that somebody didn't turn the air conditioner down to 50 degrees, somebody didn't leave the sliding glass doors unlocked. Make sure you're keeping an eye on your listing. If you can't visit every listing for 5 minutes a week, you've got too many listings. Go ahead and give some of those to me. No, I'm kidding. But the point is, we need to keep an eye on our listings. And I want to talk about something that is known around most of the United States as winterizing. But since we don't have pretty serious winters here in the Las Vegas area, we refer to it here as property preservation. And this process is where people will prepare their houses for a long nap, okay? Things like turning off the plumbing, maybe turning off the main electricity, and this can be done by a lien holder. You might not know this, but mortgage companies have field representatives all over the United States whose job it is to check on properties that are liened. You might not know. Somebody just driving down the street, taking a quick look, making sure the property is occupied, as an example. And in cases of FHA and VA financing, they might actually check that the property is occupied by the owner, that is not being rented out during that initial required occupancy period. And especially in a situation where the mortgage payments go into delinquency, you can rest assured that the lien holder, the bank, is going to send a field representative out, and they have the right to protect their assets. They have the right to look through the window if they don't see furniture, if there's no cars, no lights on, something like that. They have the right to enter the property. They can change the locks on the property. I know some agents will confuse this with foreclosure. This is not foreclosure. This is not a change in ownership or a repossession of the property. This is a situation where the lien holder is simply trying to protect the value, the sanctity of that property. So they have the right to send someone in. Now, there are some laws that apply here. One thing is that they have to put a notice on the outside and the inside of the property, letting someone know that the property has been winterized or preserved. Another requirement is that the notice they post has to have a toll-free number that is answered 24 hours a day, so that if somebody needs to get into that property, there's a phone number they can call, and also that property preservation company is required to provide a key to the owner upon request or to the authorized representative, which would be us. So if you, bottom line, if you are ever listing a property and all of a sudden you get a call from another agent, hey, the lock has been changed on this property, don't worry, it probably hasn't been foreclosed. It might be winterized. And you as the listing agent might have to provide a copy of the listing agreement to that company that did that winterizing. But when you do so, they will get you a key quickly so that you can regain access to that property. And folks, the very last thing I want to say in this video is that after close of escrow, you might be contacted by appraisers. You're thinking, why would an appraiser call me after close of escrow? Because you're now a comp. And that appraiser is out in that neighborhood trying to do an appraisal, trying to get the value of a property around you. And that appraiser is just going to have a few questions for you. They're going to confirm what they found in MLS. Did the property sell? Did it sell for this price? Was it cash conventional, FHA, VA? Did the seller give a credit to the buyer? Were there personal possessions like furniture included? That's about all they want to know. Do yourselves a favor, do us all a favor. Southern Nevada is a small community. Talk to the appraiser. Be polite, be respectful. This could be the same appraiser who is going to appraise your next listing. I would like to thank you for watching this video. I hope it was informative for you. If you are licensed with another brokerage in Southern Nevada and would like to talk with me, please text me or visit our website. See you next time.